Did the pursuit of transparency expose deep-seated elite corruption, or did it just violently fracture the most loyal political base in modern history? Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into a political conflict that is, well, it's really redefining loyalty and truth at the highest levels of government.
It really is.
We're diving deep into the struggle to force the release of the Department of Justice's Jeffrey Epstein files. And this isn't just about accountability for things that happened in the past.
No, not at all.
It's a live look at this major rift that has opened up between the administration and, some of the most powerful parts of its own base.
And we're seeing Congress step in. This legislative push is something else.
Exactly. It's forcing this internal battle where political loyalty is being tested against a massive public demand for disclosure. We're going to unpack all of it, the defiance in Congress, the public consensus, and some really disturbing compromises from journalists in these circles.
And I think what's essential to grasp right from the start is that this fight, it has just completely transcended the usual political divides.
It's not a 50-50 issue.
Not even close. You look at the data, the public appetite for this it's nearly universal. A recent poll found an astonishing 90% of adult Americans want at least some of the Epstein files released.
90%.
So it raises this huge question. With that kind of unity, why are some elements of the political and media establishment fighting so hard to, contain it, to stop the information from flowing?
And that public mandate, that 90% figure, that's what's driving the action we're now seeing in Washington. This isn't just talk. Congress is forcing the issue with the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
Right. And just so everyone's clear, this act is very specific. It would mandate the declassification and release of all records, everything held by the FBI and the DOJ on the Epstein investigation.
The prosecution, the non-prosecution deals.
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
It's a direct legislative push for the actual documents from law enforcement. And the public support for that is it's incredibly strong across all party lines. That mayor's poll you brought up, it showed 77% of Americans wanted all of the files released.
And when you break that down,
67% of Republicans and 84% of Democrats. I mean, this is a true consensus issue. It's driven by this deep public distrust of elite cover-ups.
Which brings us to the mechanism, how they force the issue. Rep. Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky, he filed what's called a discharge petition.
Which is a pretty aggressive tool.
Oh, it's a very aggressive legislative tool. It lets you bypass the leadership entirely and force a bill onto the floor for a vote. But you need the signatures. You need 218.
And on November 12, 2025, they got them. They successfully secured all 218 signatures.
But that victory, that's what really exposed the fault line inside the Republican Party.
Right, because to get there, a few very high-profile Republicans had to sign on, standing directly against pressure from their own administration.
Exactly. Four of them. Massie, of course, but also Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. That level of defiance tells you everything. It shows they're listening to their base over the administration.
And let's get into the specifics of that defiance, because we have sources indicating the administration was applying very direct pressure. Rep. Nancy Mace, for instance, refused to take her name off the petition. She wrote to the president saying it was, quote, deeply personal, and she cited her own history of sexual abuse and rape.
Just an incredibly powerful statement. And you saw a similar reaction from Lauren Boebert.
Right.
Reports say administration officials, people like Cam Bondi and Kash Patel, they were pressuring her to remove her signature. But it seems to have completely backfired.
It made her more suspicious.
Exactly. It reportedly made her dig in, made her more suspicious that there actually was a cover-up.
Yeah.
It validated the very fears her voters have.
And the White House's official line was that voting for this release was a very hostile act to the administration.
But that threat clearly didn't work. Politico is reporting that they expect over 100 Republicans to defect and vote for the bill.
100. That means it's almost certainly going to pass the House. That kind of defection is, well, it's a fundamental break.
It is. It connects right back to that core promise of fighting corruption, of standing against the deep state. When the executive branch looks like it's hiding information, it just casts immediate doubt on that whole mission.
Okay, so that brings us to the administration's pushback, which has created some pretty deep and uncomfortable contradictions here. On one side, you have President Trump saying supporters shouldn't waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. But then the White House also calls the leaks a hoax and a Democratic smear.
Well, to be fair, there could be legitimate reasons for caution, right? I mean, the standard DOJ position would be that you have to protect sensitive sources or maybe ongoing investigations.
Sure, absolutely. That is the stated position.
Yeah.
But the public perception, that's being totally undermined by what key officials used to say.
You mean like Kash Patel?
Exactly.
Yeah.
FBI Director Kash Patel. Before he took office, he was the one stoking these ominous conspiracy theories about the files. Then he gets inside, and suddenly his tone just completely changes.
Right. He disavowed all of it, wrote that the conspiracy theories just aren't true, never have been.
And that kind of flip-flop, whether his current position is valid or not, it just feeds the suspicion that the establishment is hiding something.
It fuels that narrative, yeah, that once you get inside the system, you become part of it.
Which all led to this massive, very public breach with Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the president's most vocal defenders in Congress.
She came out and said blocking the release was a huge miscalculation.
Her argument was just to release it all. She called opposing it insanely the wrong direction to go, especially when the base is so unified on it.
A direct challenge to White House strategy.
And the response was immediate. Just hours after her comments, Trump withdrew his endorsement. He attacked her publicly, called her wacky Marjorie, said all she does is complain, complain, complain.
It just shows you the massive political stakes here. Loyalty seems to be secondary to managing the fallout from these files.
And the whole attempt to suppress the story it's demonstrably backfired. Remember when the Justice Department and the FBI put out that memo?
One saying there was no client list and that no more information was coming.
Right. They clearly thought that would just shut it down, close the book.
Instead, parts of the MAGA base just erupted. I mean, you had that striking moment where Alex Jones, a huge broadcaster on the right, broke down in tears on air over the news.
That emotional response tells you everything. The establishment's effort to bury the story isn't seen as debunking a conspiracy.
It's seen as validating it, as proof that a cover-up is happening right now.
So this whole struggle for transparency, it's not just in the political world. It runs straight through the media establishment.
Which is a perfect segue to the journalist Michael Wolff.
Right. A man who got incredible access to these elite circles, but it looks like it came at a pretty significant ethical cost when it came to Epstein.
Well, Wolff's whole professional strategy was about proximity. His stated goal wasn't to keep his distance. It was to get incredible, undreamed-of access, to be part of the world he was writing about.
And when you do that, you start to sacrifice that traditional objectivity.
You have to. And the sources detail some really specific ethical breaches that showed just how compromised he became. There's that 2015 email.
The one where he's giving PR advice to Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender, about Donald Trump's presidential run.
And the details are he's advising Epstein on media strategy. He says either let him hang himself to gain political points or save him generating a debt if Trump looks like a winner.
That's not journalism. That's not talking to a source.
No, it's actively game planning media strategy with a known criminal. It completely blurs the line between reporting and PR.
And it wasn't a one-off thing. We know that as far back as 2007, when Epstein was already under indictment, Wolff was counseling him on his public image.
Yeah, Wolff recalled Epstein telling him something like, "What can I say? I like young girls."
To which Wolff's advice was, maybe you should say, "I like young women."
That direct advice on how to soften the public image of an alleged sex trafficker during an active investigation. That is the Faustian bargain right there.
And Wolff himself admitted he sat for over 100 hours of recorded interviews with Epstein for his book. He said there were always a background of girls at Epstein's house.
Yet he showed what he called a lack of curiosity about who they were or what they were doing there. The access, the scoop, that was more important than investigating the potential crime happening right in front of him.
So this whole context around Michael Wolff, it just shows how a compromised media elite who valued access over accountability really helped facilitate the secrecy Epstein needed to operate.
Precisely. And this history of journalistic failure is exactly why the public and so many in Congress are so deeply skeptical of any official claim that there's nothing to see in those government files.
Okay, so let's unpack this for you. What does all this really mean? This deep dive shows that the battle over the Epstein files has become a central defining fault line in American politics.
But it's not the usual fault line. It's not neat party divisions.
No. It's a profound split between the American people who are demanding full transparency and an established political and media elite that is, for whatever reason, resisting that disclosure no matter the political cost.
So we know the House is expected to pass this bill, and with a lot of bipartisan support. Given all the political damage the administration has taken for opposing it and this overwhelming public desire for the truth, it raises a final, really important question. If President Trump ultimately decides to veto the Epstein Files Transparency Act, what would the real cost be to the MAGA movement's core claim, his whole identity, that they stand for accountability and against the establishment? That's a question worth watching unfold.